Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. We're on the Americas account. We've got a new Tavern Brawl. I've done all of the solo adventures, so let's show that off. As much as I'm going to do, let's be honest, I never do the heroic mode. There are 4 chapters. We did the 4th chapter and then the 5th final mini boss fight yesterday.
A plague of Murloc. Everyone who
I beat every single one of these plague lords using Sir Finley,
right-hand henchman, Tikan.
and so we just you get to play as each of these characters in a row, and you start with whatever first character's deck you choose, from best I can tell. And when you bring in another character, you get all the rewards and artifacts, cards, and potential ability choices that you've unlocked. So since I had beaten all the Plague Lords with Sir Finley, I'd unlocked everything there, which upgraded Junior Scout into Senior Scout, which was a better version of that card. Each of them have one card that will improve if you defeat 4 Plague Lords or all 4 Plague Lords. There might even be some other cards that upgrade, come to think of it, but who knows. So for me, playing as Sir Finley made it super easy to beat the final boss. And we're pretty much done with the solo adventure. Now, unless they give me some daily quests to do it, there's no reason I could see to do the heroic. You'd just get a card back. If I was gonna take extra time to do heroic, I'd go back to like Nexramus and just do all that in heroic. I decided to open all my packs, which gave me some dust and gave me some cards, and then I used the dust to then craft more cards, as one does. All of these would have been things I either got an extra copy of, or the first time I've gotten like 2. That's not true for Mirror Entity, for example, though. We know we've had 2 copies of that forever. I'm still not really in any better position than I would be with this expansion than any of the previous expansions. And this solo adventure in particular teases Rafam, who is not mentioned, so it feels like the next expansion is also going to involve Rafam, or is Rafam just going to be the constant bad guy that is teased? It might be that he's the constant bad guy that's just teased. Alright, as far as daily quests, playing Warlock cards, playing Rogue class cards. Let's re-roll this. Battlecry cards, Rogue class cards, and destroy minions. And we have a Tavern Brawl, which, being in October, I assume this is going to be somewhat Halloween themed, or at least one of these will be. If not all 3 or 4 weeks of October. Make a 6-card deck and duel. Don't worry, when you're out of cards, you'll get a free reload. Okay. So let's create a deck with rogue cards. And this is one of those ones that we can only have 1 copy of anything. Backstep, Shadow Step, combo, Pogo, This is not what I really want. Deal to summon the Jade Golem. See, I think the counterfeit coins and the backstabs are going to be so cheap that I'll just not have cards to save up for. This card is banned, which that might be a new logo or something. I don't think I've seen banned, but it does open up the doorway to some annoying idea that we'll start seeing more banned cards. So, do I want to get rid of Shadow Step, or do I want to get rid of Backstab, or do I want to get rid of this, which has minimal effect? I guess I want to get rid of that. No guarantee this will really work, but it does kind of guarantee that I'll play rogue cards. I pretty much resolved not to complain about starting late today. Of course I am. This is probably just the new strategy, the seasonal affective disorder part of let's see how many free things we can get before we get one of these. The seasonal affective disorder of insomnia, I think it's just gonna play roles here. So probably from now till February or so, it'll just be late streams. That's probably the better way, because if notifications are going to come out on the live stream, it might be eating up the man, my voice is raw today. It might be eating up the 3 max notifications per day of my channel, and I desperately would like to see more of a focus on I definitely would like to see more of a focus on the pre-recorded footage. I really would like to see more people watching those videos, less people being interested in Hearthstone Live, because I'm not interested in Hearthstone Live, so there is definitely a disconnect there. Like, if I want to work a job where I'm doing something I'm not enjoying, there are much better paying jobs than being a YouTuber.
Justice is mine.
So I think we just got our 6-card refresh. I don't think we'll get counterfeit coin, counterfeit coin, counterfeit coin. We'd have to go through several layers here. But again, do things like this.
Justice is mine.
Oh, I did that wrong. I needed to have played the coin. I needed a combo and I didn't do a combo. Well, that was definitely a mistake. Because I streamed on Monday, because I streamed on Tuesday, and because I streamed on... I'm streaming today, I was A, wearing out my voice like crazy, but B, I also just did not have any extra time to do any Lego City Undercover, which I would like to see that. I'd like to see in the next couple days that I'm finished with that. I really need to sit down and schedule things. I need to test out that new software for uploading videos, which I haven't gotten around to doing. All I did yesterday after streaming was just have insomnia and not fall asleep when you need to, and work on a slight addition that I have not succeeded at yet, where I'm trying to translate a older connection style in HTML called the get method. What this does is it makes some messy URLs where you'll have like a question mark equals and then something, or question mark a value equals something, and then an ampersand and a value equals something. And that's a way for like one URL to pass data to another URL. Nextcloud has these ways of integrating other websites called external sites. It can pass a username and a email and a display name, actually is what they call it, and then a universal unique ID. What it doesn't pass is any kind of password. And what I'm trying to do is, in these low effort, low security web services that are just kind of firewalled anyways behind Nextcloud, I'm trying to get it to pass from one pre-made website a password and username dynamically to the next one. That way when you click on an external site, it doesn't just immediately ask for a password. Now, like I said, the get method is not the preferred method at all. It was replaced by the post method in HTML and JavaScript, where you would click the post method is where you have input boxes and you click submit button. So that would be the standard way to pass random variables, and that is kind of also supplanted with the authentication header method or setting cookies method, which are frankly a little too complicated. So I'm trying to make a very simplistic page that will just post it'll convert things from a URL, which is all Nextcloud can do, to a post. So go from the get method to the post method and get it to work. And I'm running into problems. It's been, for lack of a better description, probably a decade plus since I last did any kind of JavaScript programming or anything like that. And let's face it, a lot has changed since then. HTML5 in particular has kind of changed everything that HTML used to be in a better way. It would have been so nice if HTML5 existed when I was taking web programming classes in high school. But yeah, that's all I did last night, basically, is banging my head against a probably less than 10 line long web page, and still not actually be able to submit it or get it to work. It really isn't that long. It's just a matter of the web pages that it's trying to act as a clone of. Effectively what it's doing is I'm stripping out a already existing web page and saying, let's get rid of all the parts that don't matter and let's just post the stuff that does matter. And perhaps there's something inherently in that I don't fully grasp, and that might be part of the problem.
Justice is mine.
Like, it could be that it's posting differently, and when you get into some of the pages are PHP pages, which means what you're seeing when you click, like right click view source, is not really what the page is originally written as, so there can be hidden bits of information. Oh. Well, this is bull. Everybody's gonna play Reno Jackson then. Why is Reno Jackson not banned?
Justice is mine.
Like, I had a decent strategy here. And I'm gonna lose just because he can just play Reno Jackson every 6 turns at the most and re-heal himself. And I guess if I had any taunt or any kind of defense, maybe I could eventually have built myself up a little bit more, but we may have to rethink what we're gonna do here.
I wonder.
At the end of the day, though, we made progress. You know what? I was being a little too modest. There was a major thing I did otherwise. So what I did, and we'll show it here in a second. I'm just scrolling through my Twitter feed. Actually, you know what? We'll just start with the Twitter feed. I was talking about how I wanted to change the web peak, and I did spend a decent amount of time changing that. So let's show this off. So hopefully this is showing right. So I moved the video from being down here and then there being a large bar with rules and the chat. I've taken the chat out for the most part and put just like a single line here that probably wouldn't work. And I'm not actually seeing this, so I'm just mentally doing this. And I put the video up here. I tried it in every corner, and the best way I could see to do this was to use the top right. But the big thing I did is I'm sampling, and I'll not be able to show this off greatly. I'm sampling a pixel right about here on the second display, which is just about where and if I'm doing this right, the backgrounds at the top and bottom should be changing. So what I'm doing is a standard just pan and zoom filter on the entire second display, and then I am getting it down to 1 pixel, just like 1 pixel alone. And what that does is it causes me to have whatever color is in the background of that one area, and that one area in the kind of top left is always background. It almost certainly would always be background, unless somebody just really felt the need to put a logo there, and none of the main 5 or 6 pages that we go to and talk about articles do that. So what does this do? Well, it kind of quite ingeniously creates a larger dynamic background, and this is something I had an idea for a while, and I didn't know exactly how to implement it, but I was fairly certain I could do it. It creates a dynamic background up here that blends in with the middle, which is actually the page, and the bottom. So right now you're probably seeing a white bar at the bottom here. In all actuality, I'm clipping off a few pixels at the bottom, so if I hover on a link, it doesn't show up in Chrome at the bottom too. So I'm seeing a few more pixels lower than you are. But it creates this dynamic background that better integrates it. So no more are we left with just let's stick with the Steam Blue interface. It is now dynamic to whatever page I'm on, which is kind of genius, and it took a lot of time. Quite frankly, it was a lot of just relative cropping. Basically, I'm cropping of 1920 by 1080 pixels. I'm cropping 1919 out of and 1079 pixels, and then I'm zooming that 1 pixel giant. And there's some shenanigans with that, more than you would think, because the way things dither and make things look is a little less just bland single colors. But I got it. The other thing I did is I found that in uBlock Origin, it is not the element zapper function, it is the element picker mode that you use. And so I went through all of the pages, and this is Twitter, and you may notice that there's no annoying bar on the side of Twitter anymore. I used element picker, I took it out. Now that does mean eventually if I ever want to look at my notifications or direct messages in Twitter, I'm going to have an interesting time, to say the least. But I guess I could just turn off uBlocker Origin for the website. Like, we could like do that. Let's see. Just turn off that and then reload. And yeah. So here's what it looks like with it off, and hey, I do have a notification even. So I've done that with considerable amounts of elements in all the pages, just removing ads, removing things that don't give the smoothest, nicest looking screen possible. Hey, Lemon Lover followed me. Interesting. I wonder if Lemon Lover just got on Twitter. It'd be weird, frankly, if he had just gotten on Twitter when a significant amount of people are potentially getting off of Twitter. So yeah, that's an easy solution. Just I can toggle uBlock Origin on. uBlock Origin, super effective. Can't really say anything more than that. Like, super effective for what it is doing.
Justice is mine.
So I was proud of that little bit of progress. So our first story from TechRaptor, for instance, here. Sea Salt lets you control Eldritch Horrors, coming soon. You can see what this page is going to be mostly just text of the actual article in between this point down to about the author. What I didn't do is come over here and get rid of this, or get rid of the chat, or get rid of these advertisements below the part where the article is. But you can definitely see this is a nice, realistic article from TechRaptor. Whereas if I just turn this off and then reload the page, we have the hamburger bar menu that just stays with you always. We have a annoying classification system here that does you no good. It's just you know it's under gaming news. You have ads for other games and articles, because they don't really want you to read the articles. There's a gap here for no reason. There's a gap here for no reason, and there's a gap here for no reason. There's a related content ad too, so it just makes it way worse to scroll through.
I can't play that. Justice is mine.
Not paying attention. I imagine the gaps for no reason, if I was to guess, are actually ads that my Wi-Fi router are just blocking by default. That happens on top of this, so I'm doing ad blocking on top of ad blocking, and frankly there's still some ads that are not as useful as they should be.
The Brotherhood shall prevail. The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Justice is mine.
This is not going to work. It's not going to work at all. So next comparison, here's Gamma Sutra after I tweaked it, and they have an article, Sony lowers price of the PS Now streaming service and adds marquee titles. Monthly PlayStation Now subscription costs $9.99 in the US, down from $19.99. Sony in general, we're gonna have a narrative today that you can take, or you can just assume I'm just being crazy here and being conspiratorial. But it sounds like Sony's in trouble. No less than 2 major players have quit PlayStation or Sony in general in the last couple of days, and you're seeing a reduction in price. I assume that maybe they were staying around for the state of play, and once that was done, they were out. Well, I've played all the rogue class cards, so it's probably time to think about building a new deck over here. So maybe they know the PlayStation 5 development is not going well, or maybe they just don't want to be in business. So here's an article with Gamma Sutra. It's just straight, everything you want. There's some related jobs, things I didn't close, and top stories I didn't close, because it doesn't really matter what's below the fold. It's just from the part that I would be talking about or reading, that a little bit of improvement in speed here will be a huge time saver. And when we're having streams that are 3 hours long, it totally makes sense to do that. So without the ad blocking, you have this Informa top banner bar, and I know I'm zoomed in, so these pages don't look particularly that useful. So I got rid of that. I got rid of the search bar. I never use it. I got rid of the login. I got rid of the game jobs board. I got rid of the links here. Gamma Sutra's not terrible about putting things in their actual articles. Those ads, what they do more often than not is put ads as articles for GDC, their parent company. I could visually argue to get rid of, as we set this back, getting rid of the Gamma Sutra logo too, but then it would be a little less obvious what website we were even on. But take note here, if there was just a style person, like a guy in charge of making the websites look good instead of filling them with absolute garbage, you can have a much nicer experience on nearly any website just by getting rid of things that don't need to be right in front of somebody's eyes at the first glance. Okay. So if Pogo Hopper is not going to work and Reno Jackson would do anything, does a Murloc make any sense? Let's see. Murlocs. See if I have one of these, and then had one of these, and then probably can't do that, but we could do that. And then we take that for sure, and that for sure. And then that would be pretty much all we can do. And then we just take Reno. And that should be that, really. That should be a victory. We'll have to wait till we get to a Steam game to show off what I changed there, which I really didn't change anything on the Steam games actually. The Steam pages still show everything, including the extra plugin information, so no problem with that. Need to get rid of, I guess, all three of these. Yeah, that's what I want. Let's see. This, in the turn. Our next article we have is TechRaptor, Words with Friends data breach claimed by hacker. I believe this has probably been updated to be confirmed. 218 million accounts may have been compromised with Words with Friends. Now, was anybody paying for anything with Words with Friends? Let's see. What was exposed? Names, email addresses, login IDs, hash passwords with an SH1 with salt. Jeez, that's bad security. If you go halfway and still don't finish your password, reset tokens if ever requested, phone numbers if provided, Facebook ID, and Zynga account ID. So the only thing that's the big deal here is email addresses or names and login IDs and passwords. If you're using the Words with Friends password or something similar to a Words with Friends password, in something else, then that could be a problem. But it has always been recommended policy to have at the very least a memorable system to generate unique passwords for different services. It's a little too much to ask people, in my opinion, to have a completely random password for everything if you're not using the password manager. So a system, if well thought and well done, I think is a good middle ground there. I did play Words with Friends at some point, so I don't know if I ever had an account or anything. The thing about Android is if you do like have an account, it usually is through like some Google thing that either gives your password directly to them, your email and such by default, or something else. So I played Words with Friends for a brief, maybe 6 weeks, and then I was just bored with it. You know, it's too slow of a game. At least it was when I was playing it. There was like no fast, just single player option. So it was a lot of let's play with people, and then let's find more people, and then once you play a game, start over again. And with every new game you finish, there's a possibility that the people you've been playing with, your quote-unquote friends, are bored with the game and don't want to start a new game, or Yeah. Personally, I just think I'd want more player versus event style gameplay. There we go. So, here's the first bit of bad news for Sony. Gamasutra has an article here. Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asian Chief Atsushi Morita has retired. Now, how old is he? 60 years old? That's a spring chicken by Japanese standards. This probably is more of a indication that I didn't even realize there was a Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan department. I would have thought that the move had been a 100% move, and it seems it actually was closer to a laying off of the Japanese employees to make room for the California employees. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this is literally just kind of a Japanese style union busting, in a sense, where they move the office to California, which still would be a pretty strong union state. But it's a lot harder, I still think, in Japan to fire a Japanese employee than it is to shut down an office in California and fire everybody there. And so maybe that is just baseless speculation, but maybe that's what's going to happen, is that Sony Interactive Entertainment is being shuttered completely. Sony proper, Sony of Japan, clearly isn't super interested in being in charge of the PlayStation or Sony Interactive Entertainment anymore, for better or for worse. So I don't know if that's because Sony Music, which is also releasing and publishing games, is vying to take over, and this is some external factors we're seeing of a very internal fight for power. Or maybe this has nothing to do with any of that, and maybe he just did retire at 60 years old. Let's see. This is the second notable departure in days at Sony Interactive Entertainment, with the company veteran Sean Layden ending his tenure at the firm after over 30 years. The big twist, the Game of Thrones epic twist that would be awesome here, would be if it turned out all of these people are actually coming to work at Microsoft, and Microsoft has just been courting people.
How much?
What does this do? 4 damage to each hero. Why do all these things have better?
How much?
Yeah, that would be the twist. It would be almost bad, though, in a lot of ways too, if it turned out that that it'd be pretty bad if Microsoft just became this unstoppable powerhouse in the next generation. I truly believe that Microsoft was and has been at its best in the video game market with competition. Remember, Microsoft wanted the Xbox One to be an always online DRM piece of garbage experience, and it was through competition with Sony that they had to back down on that. So I wouldn't want to lose that factor. I wouldn't want to let it seems pretty consistent in cycles that one video game console developer gets too ambitious and gets too confident, and then they start getting lazy, and then they stop competing.
Is someone injured?
I think in a lot of ways that's the problem with the PlayStation 4 right now, is that they stopped competing for exclusives. They stopped competing for just general games that would have brought in a general gaming audience, and they more focused only on their prestige games like The Last of Us 2, all of which took too long to come to market, and there just wasn't enough of them in development in the first place. Play this. It's probably not the right move, so let's do this and do this. Attack here and attack here, and then end the turn. So yeah, we shall see. Gamasutra has an article here. It's a blog. Which are the most commonly used game engines? I can tell you off the top of my head, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be Unreal Engine, followed by Unity, depending on how you break it down. If you have probably a more wider perspective on it and include a lot of the mobile games, it probably is Unity. But I think also you could make an argument that RPG Maker games probably would be a high number also, if you just count every piece of garbage RPG Maker that's ever been made. There we go. So his breakdown on this blog is he found 1,726 Unreal Engine games, 889 Unreal Engine games. Here we get into some interesting numbers though. 270 Source Engine games, which is really small. And then CryEngine is even lower than that. I kind of get that, but I'm surprised there's so many Source Engine games.
Is someone injured?
I would have thought CryEngine would have maybe been third. Meanwhile, I would assume that if you threw in things like RPG Maker, which probably RPG Maker is built in Unity by default, so it probably just goes into Unity. So yeah, I'm not super surprised not too many people are using Source Engine or CryEngine. Where proprietary engines fall in this is the real question, and I would imagine those numbers are a lot smaller. The Gamebryo engine, I've heard of that, but I couldn't name a single game. The IW engine I've never heard of. Anvil I've never heard of. idTech, is 113 games are built on idTech? Are they all built by id? Alright. We need a poisonous. Oh, yeah. I have to make sure I keep playing Then he has Essence, never heard of that, and Clausewitz. And then identified games with other engines are 3,266. So there really is no consistency here. Even the Unreal Engine is far beaten by other things. Apparently he scanned Wikipedia, which is an interesting way to do that. And then he scans Steam. Itch.io, on the other hand, has their own breakdown where they give the vast majority of games that they have to Unity, and then Construct, Game Maker, Twine, RPG Maker, Bitsy, Pico 8, Unreal Engine is way at the bottom, the Godot engine's below it, RenPy, I've heard of that one. I think that's just another RPG Maker type game if I was to guess. Geez, I just made them more expensive, didn't I?
Job's done.
It's not particularly surprising that for games on itch.io that they would mostly be Unity games, though, considering the level of quality of games that get put on itch.io, and it seems to be their target market and their target products. It would be really weird if itch.io came out and said, oh, actually, no, we want AAA Unreal Engine games.
Well played. You have better.
On the other hand, if we were to look at like the Epic Store, I would guess 100% of all of the games on the Epic Store use the Unreal Engine because Epic owns the Unreal Engine and you get a discount on, like, you don't have to pay a licensing fee if you put the game on the Epic Store for sales on the Epic Store. Well, that was slightly frustrating, but we got it done. And then that just leaves us with a little bit of Battlecry cards, which means we can... Actually, let's come over here first and change our card back. Let's see. Tombs of Terror card back. We'll set that, show that off, and then we'll just, with the new month, need to play something. So, Battlecry cards. Would it be Tempo Rogue or Silence Priest? Let's try Tempo Rogue. So here's our first game on Steam. Now you may notice that the automatic backup here for Steam is a dark blue at the top, which makes the top bar and the bottom bar dark blue. It should, at least. But Steam in particular, with its solid color background, which they need to change, they need to update their website quite a bit, has an interesting effect here. When I scroll down, all of a sudden it becomes a lighter blue to match what is at the top of the screen here, and it kind of sticks with that. And so in a few instances we might get the color dynamically changing in the background, but otherwise it works very well. There was one page where actually there was a gradient where it was kind of a bright white at the very top and then got down to a darker shade of gray but still pretty white as you scroll down, and it changed the background, certainly, like that's what it's designed to do, but it works. And so I guess, shameless plug here, let me know in the comments how you like the new web peak feature.
Job's done.
I'm still in a weird position with the web peak. It's like something I'm going to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people have not really liked it at all and would just prefer that I stay with Hearthstone. I really, depending on your device, I have no idea how much of the screen you actually see when it's showing the little window of Hearthstone. So that might be effective or useless.
Justice is mine.
For everybody. But yeah, that's kind of one of those changes where, for my own sanity's sake, I have to integrate the news, the video game stuff, games coming out on Steam, and it is keeping me well more informed about the industry as a whole, more than I probably need to be informed, but I'm still seeing what's coming out on Steam, whereas a lot of people don't see that. They honestly only get the impression that 5 to 20 games come out a year. So here we have a game on Steam, Challenging Dogfights. This is, by the looks of it, a simplistic side shooter game. You can see that it's almost completely a solid color in the background, and that makes it very visually dull. And see, if this was a movie and this was like a World War II art aesthetic, I might buy into that. It would be like the equivalent of looking at a black and white movie. But because it's a game, it's just going to be ugly. And by the looks of how this is animated and how this plays, this is clearly something akin to a student project, not something that should actually be available for purchase. It's discounted to $1.34 and it's English only. It has 21 achievements. So, yeah. You may have noted that I really did not remove anything from Steam. There are probably some tweaks I could do, but I don't really think I need to. Every bit of information that comes out on Steam is slightly useful. So yeah, and that is, I guess, the credit I can give Steam's page as a storefront, is that they are at least presenting useful information, where if you look at an Amazon.com page, a lot of that stuff that gets posted on their pages are not as useful as it should be.
Ha, this guy's toast.
I'll take that.
TechRaptor has an article here. Update: Pokemon Sword and Shield features include autosave and experience share. They've also introduced a new character for the next season of the Pokemon anime. It will no longer be just Satoshi alone with his friends. It will be Satoshi, aka Ash, and a character that in the Japanese is being referred to as Gao, G-H, I believe, O-U.
Hey, lights out.
So, the thing I would say about Gao in particular is he's described as a he, but in anime, frankly, he looks more like a she. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is going to be a twist reveal at some point. But who could tell? They all have wild hairstyles and are being drawn as prepubescent boys, which a prepubescent boy / a prepubescent girl are pretty easy to mistake. And Gao in the animations that I've seen is wearing a hoodie, so any indication of any female characteristics are pretty well hidden. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is a female character, and it would be about time. It's been like 2 decades in which they followed Ash Ketchum around. They finally let Ash Ketchum win a tournament, and I think that is that is a perfect time to kind of have him retire, because he wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was, and he's done that, I think, at this point, although that is a nebulous goal. Whereas Gao's goal is to collect every known Pokemon to exist, which means Gao is got the actual collect them all bug, where that is not something Ash Ketchum had. Like, Ash Ketchum often wasn't catching Pokemon or doing anything, and I saw one YouTube video that really explained it quite well. Is that Ash Ketchum would have been successful way earlier had he just listened or learned from anybody or anything instead of just going his own way and trying to do it the way he thought it should be done. He's actually, from an adult perspective, a very annoying character, just because he didn't learn from others' mistakes. Let's see, if I play this, the only thing I can do is this. Right. Moving on though with Pokemon Sword and Shield. So there'll be 18 gyms, one of each elemental types. 18 elemental types. Those feature a slew of features. Mixed raid battles. Well, I don't see anything here amazingly interesting to mention. Otherwise, it's like autosave and experience sharing by default is probably rather useful. So that gets rid of having to go to a Pokemon Center and heal your Pokemon and then saving after you heal them. I believe that's when you saved. And it eliminates the need for an item to be placed on one of your active Pokemon to share experience. Which that's useful, certainly. I think in some of the earliest Pokemon games, getting the experience share item in particular was not something you just had. It was something you had to work for a couple hours before you could use it or have it.
Mine.
So honestly though, I would say that there is a insignificant amount of improvement has been made incrementally to the Pokemon series over the long time that it's been going. If you compare the most recent Pokemon to the oldest Pokemon, and then you compare the oldest Super Mario game like Donkey Kong or Super Mario Brothers to Super Mario Odyssey, there's a lot more difference there. Let's see. Battle Cry, I guess? I guess we'll take that. I guess we'll do that. Do I want a Battle Cry? No. I think what I want to do is charge, then attack, get him back, and do it a second time. But then I'd have to have this off the field. Which I think I could do that. So, a charge, attack, attack.
Justice is mine.
kill this and waste my weapon. And I'm bringing that back. That wasn't quite exactly what I wanted, but it should work. There have been several kind of unimportant, unnecessary mentions on Atelier because Atelier is just extremely, extremely popular. And I have here from Konami Tecmo, if you happen to be in Japan, the Konami Tecmo Cafe is having an Atelier Rise collaboration between 925 and 1022. Special mugs, special cocktails, special food. They are tying in a lot specifically to promote this new game, and I hear it's being very, very well received. There was some reset era complaints that I think were invalid about one of the characters being particularly depicted as large. She certainly is big, but I don't see why that's a problem. If there are bigger, just fatter characters in the real world, and so having one every 100 games is not an immediate body shaming or attack on people. And let's see. Similarly, there seems to be a shocking amount of division. I don't know why it's shocking, frankly, but there is a decent amount of division between whether or not something is happening with a game that came out a year ago on Steam called Heartbeat. As best as I can tell,
This guy's
the main creator of Heartbeat is a lesbian. One of the other creators, or maybe that creator's girlfriends,
This guy's toast.
I couldn't even get that default bit of information correct, went on a bit of a screed. I didn't see what she posted, but it really doesn't matter. If somebody's girlfriend or ex-girlfriend goes on Twitter and says something offensive, you're taking cancel culture here from canceling the person to canceling the friends of people, which really just smacks in the face of the idea of freedom of association and freedom of being harassed or abused because of your association. I assume what this mostly boils down to is every lesbian who wants to actually be with a biological female is immediately labeled as a trans exclusionary what is it? Trans exclusionary regressive female or something? TERF for short? I don't even know what it stands for. I know the trans exclusionary part, and that's it. And so what it seems, and this has been a long thing going, is that the LGBTQ community has never been a single community with single goals. They always have had different goals and different focuses because they're different people with different interests. So the L and the G part really doesn't like the T part, because the T part is about your gender identity, where the L and the G part is about your sexual preference, or so. And if you're a lesbian, your sexual preference in the name is defined as you want to sleep with women. It becomes more of a personal decision there whether or not you care whether you're sleeping with a biologically born woman or someone who has transitioned as a woman. But I fully understand why a lesbian would not want to sleep with somebody who looked like a man but claimed to be a woman, somebody who was pre-op or partial operation, or who was post-op and still did not just meet the visual appeal. And appeal is always a very individualized thing in general. But the T part of that group won't have any of that. They are the worst of the SJWs by far. I just think it's because in part they are the T part, as I understand it, are actually, by their own definition, mentally ill, whereas the L and the G part really aren't, by today's standards, considered mentally ill. They would have been a few decades ago, certainly, but and certainly the statistics and the complaint here about this game Heartbeat seems to imply that also, because there is this claim that 41% of all transgendered people commit permanent self-harm, I suppose. YouTube has these banned words, although I've probably been saying all the banned words up until this point anyways. So commit suicide, just for ease of understanding. They claim that 41% of all of that happens. So now people are brigading both pro and for Heartbeat because somebody got upset that Heartbeat was 35% off, and then the soundtrack bundled together was another 10% off, which then, depending on your currency, rounded it to 41% off, which would not be how you would do it if you just wanted to do an insult and have a 41% off sale. And that's really where the stupidity of this boils down to, is literally they're making the claim, and this is the fascist thought police of SJWs in play here, is that they've literally put their foot in the ground and said any game whatsoever that at any storefront for any reason is 41% off is directly attacking transgender people, which is ridiculous.
For Doomhammer.
Like, it's 41%, not a percentage you get on discounts very often. I'll grant you that. But if you were just going to make it obvious, you would make it a lot more obvious than just putting your game 35% off, then doing the math to see that the bundle was 41% off. I've seen games on Steam for sale for 1% off. I've seen games for sale for 99% off. So are the 1% off sales giving their support to the 1% movement from several years ago? No. Are the 99 sales giving some tacit approval to a majority rule? No. I really haven't even seen adult games put their games at 69% off, and that would be the one thing I would see more than anything, is 69% off or 42% off for any marijuana games, because you couldn't do 420% off, then it would be free. So, like, if somebody was going to send a message with a sale, that's ridiculous. Meanwhile, people who are tired of the transgendered activists on Reset Era in particular, I feel it's kind of important to say hashtag not all T's out there. I'm sure the vast majority of them are not spending all of their time on Reset Era. Unfortunately, there are quite a lot though, and particularly in the video game industry, is like it feels to me like 60 to 70% of all people who claim to be female are transitioned females in the video game reviewing industry. Even a YouTuber recent that I used to watch, they've gotten pretty boring over the past few years, has come out and said he was transitioning to a she, and I'm like, okay, like, didn't really see that one coming.
Converting stored energy.
But at the very least, I will say it's probably not through some insane desire for more views, because I don't think it really is going to help him in that department. So yeah, that's the Heartbeat story as I understand it. There was a Reddit Out of the Loop post about it, and it was just shocking because people take into it whatever they want to, and nobody's really doing any research, and I'm including myself. I really didn't do any research, but at the very least I knew I wasn't going to do any research, and I wasn't really going to care about this story because it really is a non-story about a game that came out over a year ago. There was an indie game that has no relevance now and won't have any relevance later. Even being embroiled in a controversy is not going to, in my mind, justify playing it. But the Out of the Loop article really goes to show, like, one side that's going to take offense completely and assume the worst of the game producer because of mostly what his girlfriend said, or her girlfriend said, while others are going to just kind of either stay out of it or go hard against it.
The battle! The battle! For justice! Reporting for duty.
There really is some silliness on the anti-turf side from my perspective, though. If you're a transgendered person, I think at the core you have to agree and believe that everybody has the right to do whatever they want with their own body. So it seems insane for you to then turn around and say lesbians or even gay men, if somebody transitioned from a female to a male, don't have the right to control their own body to the point of knowing who is actually deciding who they want to sleep with or date.
For justice.
So yeah, the whole idea kind of falls apart, and I don't know why you would want to get in a relationship or date somebody who's immediately told you that in general they don't want to date or deal with transgendered people. Like, I would much prefer to have to deal with somebody that comes out and tells me they're a racist in the first 5 minutes than somebody who's going to be insidious about it and actually be obviously racist but never admit to it and claim they aren't. It's much easier to just say, okay, that's you, I'm not going to deal with you then at the front. Moving on, we have a TechRaptor article. Fallout Legacy Collection has been spotted on Amazon Germany. I assume this... 6 games? Interesting. So that would be Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Fallout Tactics, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas. So that's like a bundle of everything. I don't know why Bethesda would specifically try that. And the Legacy Collection does not include Fallout Shelter, which how would you get that in a bundle? I guess you could. The online only Fallout 76 and Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel, released back in 2004. I could see bundling the games, but if you're putting, particularly if Bethesda puts any effort whatsoever into making a new version of these Fallout games, I don't know what they would be doing with their time to justify that being a priority. They should be making the next Fallout game, because they've got probably less than 4 years to turn the Fallout series around, or the Outer Wilds is going to eat their lunch and nobody is going to care about playing Fallout 5 at all. Meanwhile, also, they probably have less than 4 years to put out the next Elder Scrolls game and their space game series that they're working on. I don't think people are going to be willing to live on Bethesda time much longer. I don't know if Bethesda really has enough funding to stick around for another 12 years without releasing a major hit. But yeah, if this was just kind of a mistranslation of what Steam does, where it's a simple just drag these games into the shelf and then you've got a bundle that we sell. If that's all it is, that's not too bad.
Reporting for duty.
Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Sean Layden is departing Sony Interactive Entertainment. This would be I don't know where he was working actually, out of whether the California office or a Japanese office or what, or if he was just telecommuting. Layden has not announced where he'll be headed next, but looking at him, he is definitely not a 60-year-old, which even 60 is kind of young to be retiring. So it's worth mentioning that Sony in general is having trouble. So this is maybe an indication that Sony itself is running out of money and losing employees, as much as it is just the Sony Interactive Entertainment studios falling apart. So it definitely could be a bigger indicator of something else.
Access denied.
Follow the rules.
That doesn't help me any. Let's see.
The battle.
Do I want to kill this? I think I do. There we go. In recent years, the article continues, Layden has become a notable spokesman for the company's gaming arm, most recently defending the gaming company's decision to quit E3 and explaining why the company may support games on non-PlayStation platforms, which I had forgotten about that statement in a nutshell, is that maybe there really is not even a PlayStation 5 coming out. It's oddly possible. Speaking of odd, we have Destiny 2 coming out from Bungie on Steam, which Activision Blizzard owned the exclusives to Destiny, I believe, and so it was on the Activision Blizzard account launcher only for PC. They got out from under that, so now I guess you could play Destiny 2, but it would be kind of crazy, to say the least, to want to just jump in so late into the game. While this says it came out October 1st, 2019, I believe we're 2 years into Destiny 2, and I guess if you didn't want to play Borderlands 3, if you were just boycotting that, you might play Destiny 2 instead, and it's a somewhat similar game. It's not so much a looter shooter, though it's more of a team-based shooter. It's maybe a bit like a Halo style game if you had more teams. It's free to play, I suppose, but if you buy Shadowkeep, you're spending $34.99. If you buy the deluxe edition, you're spending $60. There's the Forsaken DLC for $2 and $24.99, and there's in-app purchases. So I would almost assume that a Destiny 3 would be the right point to jump in if you were going to go that route. Have
Minion already attacked. For justice. Reporting for duty.
Yeah. I would almost assume you would just want to wait till Destiny 3 and not jump into Destiny 2.
That belongs in
Which, frankly, this is a good example of where the exclusivity periods being super long can just ruin a Steam particular player's experience, or anybody's experience that's not on that platform. Is Destiny 2, it would be very hard for me to justify it has relevance enough that you would want to play it now. And as somebody who plays older games in single player retrospectively, there's really no way I feel that I could play the Destiny series. I definitely couldn't play Destiny 1 and show it off. And in a weird way, games like Axiom Verge, which didn't ever get any footing, but was very similar to Destiny, and Destiny 2, 10 years from now, both of those games will be on the same footing, because they'll both be completely irrelevant. There will be no going back to it and playing it again, not unless they integrate a major story gameplay mechanic, which is what a lot of people try to do, I suppose. I've seen a few games do that, where they try to convert a mostly multiplayer game into a single player game, but most don't bother and most don't succeed. Okay, that's one. Let's try again. Next we have a game on Steam called Three of Fish, which is just a fish matching game, low effort mobile game. At least it is taking up the full screen though. Visually this is not too bad for a simplistic game. You've got some probably pre-bought fish that you've colored in different colors, You've got a decent wood background. I will say the white text on it is not great, and there should have been a black background, black outline on the text. And then you've got 3 stars and a score goal of your current score. And then you have a ocean background that's not too distracting. There is nothing happening on the side, so I would have tried to fix that, but not terrible. 99 cents, English only, not something that really needs to be on the follow list, but as far as small, simplistic games go, I can't call this a low effort game because it does seem like they spent some effort. I could call it a low effort title, and but that's kind of all I can do. Low effort thumbnail, but that's kind of it. Magnetic Rush, just end the turn. Next we have a game on Steam here called Super Smash Physics Battle, which is clearly a low effort attempt at making like a Smash Brothers clone of some sort, or shooter player versus player experience. You can see the developer and publisher are Chinese. This is $2.99. It's English and Chinese. Single player mode not supported yet. 3 times under tips, so multiplayer only. Yep, this is a cheap Chinese product. It has very little chance of ever becoming anything beyond that. Control this. And just, do we want to play a coin?
I must move quickly.
Nope. Let's not do that. Next we have a game on Steam, Touhou Blooming Chaos, another one of these Touhou bullet hell games that I am still not sure are being made by a single group of creators, or well, apparently this isn't the side-scrolling bullet hell shooter. Yeah, it still is, but it's also got some like RPG elements. This Touhou series must be extremely popular. But here's the problem here. English not supported, $5.39, Chinese only. I am almost certainly not going to play all of these Touhou games. I may try one of them at the end of my career as playing video games, but I definitely don't think I'm gonna make an effort to play one that would be written in Chinese. Like, it really gives me nothing to criticize other than the gameplay, of which I'm no expert, so I would probably be incredibly frustrated and not get anywhere with the
converting stored energy.
Yeah, so I'd probably get nowhere with Touhou Blooming Chaos, so that's not the one for me. Seems like we've got a collection here of Chinese games, which is fine.
Access denied. Converting stored energy. Photonic burst.
Let's go!
I didn't need to give that one rush. I could have puffed that one up some more. So next game we have on Steam is a bunch of Asian characters, and then we see some dots here. It seems, if I was to guess, it's some kind of board game. I would guess something akin to a Risk style board game. Seems visually simplistic, and it's not going to support English, so there's no way I'd be able to play a board game. Wouldn't understand a single bit of what's going on. It's discounted to $1.45 and Chinese only, as far as the language. Really don't have a lot to cover, but I haven't been moving very fast either. Next we have a game on Steam called Turtle Rush, which seems to be kind of like a top-down 3D infinite runner platformer game. Stealing some ideas, I guess, from Frogger. The top-down angle here is not well thought out, and so that leaves the game looking pretty bad, zoomed out and all the way. It's $4.99, English only, and we've got memes getting posted in the official updates. Yeah, just kind of a bad concept implemented badly. So that's not gonna make it to the follow list. How does this guy keep killing my minions? I'd like to know how he's doing that. Like, what in the world? He's charging. He's destroying all damaged minions. He did it twice.
Access denied.
Okay. Can I afford that? No, because it won't.
Let's go!
Reporting for duty.
Let's see, here's Gamatsu, and I don't think I really changed too much on Gamatsu's page. I believe it's Gamatsu that has the color gradient in the background, so slightly as you go down lower, there's a little bit of grayness in this box compared to this pure white here. It's a little off-white. Here we can see quite a bit of screenshots of the Yokai Watch game, which is interesting, to say the least. I'll see if this actually comes to the West. That's the big question. Yokai Watch Plus Plus launches for the PS4 and Switch December 5th in Japan. Existing owners can purchase the new content for about $15.
Follow the rule.
We'll do this. And we'll have to do this.
Last warning.
Just smash people in the face.
For justice, I must move quickly. Job done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Puzzle Action, which is just a jigsaw puzzle game, as best as I can tell.
Say the magic word.
Yep, standard low-effort jigsaw puzzle game, discounted to 59 cents, English only. Nothing more needs to be said about that. These games are still coming out on, if not a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis. Next we have a game on Steam called Street Royals Z, or Street Royals. By the looks of it, it seems to be something trying to sell itself as a first-person shooter, looter shooter game, but I suspect what it really is a low-effort asset flip garbage game that is just trying to confuse people. Looking at some of these menus and what you actually seem to be able to do, it looks terrible. Early access, $18.99. Third-party agreement and English only. Yeah. And a low-effort name on top of all of that.
Let me think.
Let's see. We hit this. Then we hit that. And then we play that.
Last Warning.
More, you can take it as bad news, or you can take it as just kind of weird news for PlayStation. Gamma Sutra has an article. PlayStation quietly brings out PlayStation 4 crossplay out of beta. By the way, they also took off from their page for Death Stranding a label that said it was only coming out for the PlayStation, which gives me every indication and belief that it is specifically not coming out only for the PlayStation.
Reporting for duty.
The crossplay function really has only been allowed to work with a few games. Fortnite, Rocket League, Dauntless. I don't think that there's been a ton of other games that have even been allowed to do crossplay. And in what we were hearing were a lot of stories when crossplay first came out for the PlayStation is that people would contact their Sony representative, and the Sony representative would just tell them straight up, no, you can't have crossplay. No, we're not doing that. So they certainly didn't seem to be embracing it. And they were losing customers because of that, almost certainly.
Reporting for duty.
And that, again, is another indication when you have your Japanese partners not really wanting to work with you because you're censoring them, when you have your Western partners not really wanting to work with you because you're not allowing crossplay, you've lost basically the entirety of the world. And the only people that Sony seem to be courting and really trying to get new games developed and sold are the Chinese developers, with the China Joy project, I believe was the name of it, which I don't know, maybe that's the whole craziness. Maybe Sony is just trying to sell itself to Tencent and become the de facto Chinese company instead of a Japanese company. That seems crazy. That seems like that wouldn't work, but it would be very, very silly for Sony Interactive Entertainment in particular to try to abandon the West and abandon Japan in favor of China as a market. But on the other hand, Sony movies have totally been doing that. That's all Hollywood in general has been doing for the past decade, is that they're seeking out more and more movies that will play and be viewed in China over any other target audience. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article bringing out the best in your game dev team. This is an interesting blog, I suppose, if you're interested in that. There's certainly probably a lot of education that anybody could use to be a good leader in any situation. It does not get taught well, but a blog like this also is going to be very flowery and lacking in any specific tips or trips. That's kind of what I like about Bar Rescue, is that like Bar Rescue will throw out some actual numbers, so it's not just like you've got to inspire the bartenders to have a smile on their face when they're pouring the drinks and delight the customers and flowery language that doesn't usually mean much of anything. They'll go, the average dollar per square footage in the average bar in the United States should make $150 or $100 a square foot, depending on where you are. If you're in a richer neighborhood, $150 a square foot. So if you take your overall net income, not the gross income, and you divide that by the square footage of the bar you're running a bar out of, and you're not getting a number above 150, you're not making enough money, just compared to all the other bars in the world, or in the United States, which that's going to be a problem. Or they'll say something very specific in bar rescues, like if your beer keg is over like 83 degrees, you'll lose up to 50% of the yield from that beer keg because it'll be hot and come out as foam. So you immediately can take that information and go, oh, well, I know what temperature to look for. I know how to make sure that our beer kegs and our beer taps are properly chilled, and we want as much of a percentage of profit from that as possible. Whereas if you try to put that in the video game terms, I can only throw out a few numbers to make sense with that. Just general how long it should take to make a video game should be 4 years to maybe 6. How many employees you should have on your project should be somewhere between 5 employees and 100, unless you're making a huge project. How much you should be paying those employees really would be just kind of what the industry average is. And that number is probably extremely low. So when reading a blog that's like how to get the best out of your dev team, it probably is a lot of just flowery stuff you're gonna have to do, because that's what you see with so many video game companies. It's like free lunches, comfy chairs, comfy lounge area, pool tables in the break rooms, pinball machines, arcade machines, vegan lunches served, pets are welcome at all times. Things like that to make people confuse their job for their home and work themselves to death there. Extreme stressing of the need for crunch, like things like that would really be where it would boil down to.
Access denied.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Microsoft announces the first batch of Xbox Games Pass games for October. So Dishonored 2, World War Z, Panzer Dragoon something? What does that say? I can't read it. Felix the Reaper and Yooka-Laylee. Let's see. State of Decay 2 gets a costume pack DLC. Let's see. Is there anything else worth mentioning here? Fallout New Vegas, Panzer Dragoon Orta, and Felix the Reaper. Okay, yeah. I think Xbox Game Pass is still proving itself to be a worthwhile product. There we go. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Imaginator. Looks like this might be a asset flip horror game. I saw someone playing the game Visage, which almost certainly I would have classified as a low effort asset flip horror game, and it seemed like actually it had a little bit more game than I would have thought. But I don't think it really would have changed much, because it still was kind of just... You're just in this weird position, I guess, with those kinds of games. And I don't know what to really do with them. Because they may have a little bit of gameplay, but they have kind of an undesirable effect of not being as visually pretty as other kinds of walking simulator games. Like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter had puzzles in it, and it had like a narrative, so it really wasn't just a walking simulator, but walking simulators in general as a descriptor have kind of expanded to mean more than they used to. And that's kind of what I'm feeling with a lot of these horror games, is that they are not there as far as having a good enough story or a good enough gameplay to make me want to really play it. So when I look at something like Imaginator, I am fairly certain I don't want to play it, but I guess I'll be generous and put it on the fall list, and we'll see. Its early access is $24.99. Requires VR. Well, if it requires VR, then I'm going to take it off. Oh, by the way, there was a VR game I saw an article about where it was not even a VR game as much as a VR movie, in which you look through the eyes of a young child being abused. It was to raise awareness of abuse. I don't know who honestly doesn't know child abuse exists. I think perhaps there might be some ways to explain to people what is child abuse and what isn't, because I know that there's a vast difference of opinion out there and it doesn't get talked about enough. But I think you would also probably not benefit much by seeing it through the eyes of a kid in this kind of dramatization. That frankly sounds more like something you would do as a punishment to a parent who was an abuser, more than as a way of informing people.
Reporting for duty.
And to be honest, enough instances of child abuse happen that and a lot of people have blacked it out. I could imagine a significant number of people, if a lot of people looked at this video, having flashbacks, recovering memories, even recovering or creating false memories, that of which would not really benefit anybody. I think a dry clinical approach to something like that is more useful. Standard, like flat 2D imagery with a lot of text is more useful than a 3D VR experience. And it feels a little edgy. I have to admit, it feels like they're going a little too edgy for it, even if their intention is 100% pure. Moving on, we have an article here from Gamma Sutra. EA is offering a free month of Origin access to encourage two-factor authentication use. So you get a free month of the PC subscription game library Origin access for those that turn on two-factor authentication. Not a bad deal, frankly. You should have two-factor authentication enabled for everything, although the problem with two-factor authentication often is that the only method that is open and available is a method through a cell phone text message, and that is actually adding a layer of less security, not adding a layer of more security, because it is super easy to steal somebody's sim, particularly since a new exploit called SimJacker just came out a couple of weeks ago. So it's totally possible that somebody could hack your phone remotely, get the text messages, and then log in through two-factor authentication, which again goes to show that the importance of having a good password, even with two-factor authentication, is still a big deal. Unfortunately, some sites still have problems with extremely long passwords. So if you're running a website that only allows you to have 10 to 12 characters as a password, that's not long enough, and two-factor is the only thing you can add to make that slightly better. Whereas ideally you would want an infinite length password approaching 50 to 100 characters.
Reporting for duty.
But lots of things don't support that. TechRaptor has an article here. Steam Lab Deep Dive gets updated, which this might be an article about the updated version of Deep Dive that happened a while ago. So last time I looked at Deep Dive, it still had some problems. It really wasn't making a useful product.
Wow. For justice. That's not a valid target.
There you go.
The battle. Reporting for duty.
Do everything we can. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Rocket League is bidding loot boxes in exchange for blueprints. So how the blueprints work is questionable. Although blueprints differ from loot boxes in a few crucial ways, there are still a lot of similarities between the two. For instance, both allow players to unlock items, some of which have special attributes making them more rare for a price. The key difference between blueprints will allow players to immediately see what they're paying to unlock, meaning they no longer run the risk of dropping cash on something they don't want. So it is effectively a loot box guaranteed to give you a very specific car, but there are different rarities of the different cars. I did get around to buying Rocket League, and I don't regret owning it as a game, because I think it is a game that's kind of an evergreen game you can play and have kids play, even if you just ignore all the microtransactions. But I do feel like the microtransactions are greedy and shady, and do have a problem with this being a game that could have been super kid friendly, and then asking for money up front and then asking for more money in microtransactions. I could say that about a lot of games though. So unfortunately the video game industry is just getting greedier and greedier, and perhaps the world, the corporate world, the capitalistic world of the United States in particular, just getting greedier and greedier. Meanwhile, California is thinking about doing universal basic income. So now's your time to move to California, Canada. Did I say California? No, I meant Canada. Alright, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Cheer and Track, which apparently you jump on the shoulders of your friend there. It's two low polygon 2D girls, and in some aspect you do apparently jump on the shoulders to. So the different characters have different abilities. So you have to work together. That's an interesting concept of a game. Holding hands, getting on the shoulders of each other. But this visually just looks awful. This is early access, $3.34 English. It says has full audio. It's a good concept. It's a bad delivery. Let's see.
Access denied.
Move quickly.
So hopefully somebody will take that concept and apply it to something else. I'm sure that there have been some other versions of that. Lego games in a lot of ways are like that. You have 5 or 6 different types of characters that have different abilities. But I've never seen it be done where the characters are on screen and there's a high emphasis on cooperation. So that's where you would have a different experience.
Stored energy. Converting stored energy.
Let's see. 3 in 1. Just gonna do that. There we go.
Deploying countermeasures.
Next we have a game on Steam called Inspector, and then a bunch of Asian characters. It looks like it's a clone of one of those fighting games, one of those Neo Geo fighting games where you have weapons. Fatal Fury, is that the series I'm thinking of? Or River City Ransom? The River City series. Regardless, English is not supported on this. It's $3.99. It's Chinese. It's clearly a Chinese clone of something else, so I do not expect there to be quality in the product. Looking at the screenshots, you can see there's not a lot of variety in the backgrounds. It seems like they're pretty stagnant, and it seems like you're probably just going to fight wave after wave of enemies. Whereas some of the other games where you were walking from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, you were making a large amount of effort to change it up and have the city feel really alive. Next we have a game on Steam called Fugue. I assume that's how you pronounce that? Fugue? I've heard of Fugue State, and I assume that that's what this is. This seems to be some kind of either music simulator, or it says it's tagged puzzle. It doesn't look exactly like a rhythm game, though. It looks like you're putting birds on a wire to make music. But from the movable video here, I don't understand how the game really plays. It's $4.99. It's English only. It looks too simplistic. It looks like a unthought out product. Let's see.
Let me
Access denied.
And then do this. And then do this.
Reporting for duty.
Then attack here and attack here. Right, so we would need one more paladin victory and 3 more minions that cost 8 or more. So let's just stick with that and see what happens first, and then we'll move over to the Asian account. And I guess we're not going to break up recordings today at this rate or do anything. TechRaptor has an article here. Over 250,000 letters have been delivered in the game Kind Words, which that's kind of the only thing the game is. So if one assumes that you send at least 5 on average letters per players, divide that by 5 and you would have 50,000 people have bought and played Kind Words, which is not a significant amount of people, but maybe a big number for a small indie developer. The game itself is one of these games that more feels like a game jam game that is designed to appeal to people who are in the mood to do basically nothing and praise a game for basically doing nothing by just saying, well, at least it's not violent. It's a non-violent, chill game. The subtitle of the game is Lo-Fi Chill Beats to Read To, or something like that. My criticism from the looks of Kind Words is that Kind Words is not entertaining or interactive, and I think the numbers probably would spell that out if you actually ran the numbers. Let's assume that you send 10 letters instead of 5, then you're down to 25,000 sales. Assume that you send 100 letters instead of 10, then you're down to 2,500 sales. I would still believe that. That it is totally believable to me that only 2,000 units sold. What you're not seeing here is 100 million, 900 million, a billion letters being sent, and that's all the game is, as far as I understand it. Moving on, Game Sutra has an article, Master the Art of Porting Your Game to Oculus Quest at XRDC this month. This is an advertisement for one of their presentations again. XRDC is I guess, companion to GDC, all owned by Informa. And that little disclosure at the bottom. TechRaptor has an article here. PlayStation Now price drops, GTA 5 and other games join the library. We already kind of talked about this, but yeah. PlayStation Now is cheaper, and GTA 5 is pretty good get, but it's not gonna really, I think, convince very many people to play to get PlayStation Now.
Jewels of the sound.
Yeah, anybody that's itching to play GTA 5 has had probably 10 years at this point to play it. It does feel like it's been 10 years since GTA 5 first came out. Okay. Let's do this. And do this.
Converting stored energy.
And let's see. And
Converting stored energy.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. PUBG crossplay between Xbox One and PlayStation 4 is launched. So it's probably a little too late for PUBG though. I haven't heard anybody say anything about PUBG in probably 3 months minimum, if not 6 months. I think that game is pretty well dead at this point. It could rise from the grave if it manages to put out some more content and maybe get an audience to come back to it. But it's all about Fortnite right now, and even that is Fortnite barely gets any notifications or new updates that make it newsworthy. It's kind of like Hearthstone. Like, there's certainly a fan base still playing Hearthstone, but the new expansion that just came out yesterday on Hearthstone really didn't get any major coverage or anything. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Crash Team Racing is getting 3 more Grand Prix seasons. I don't think Crash Team Racing was reviewed particularly well, but I guess if you did like that game as a potential, I think it's on PC game, competitor to Mario Kart, more Grand Prix seasons might be a good thing, or maybe not, because it might be just a cheap effort to get more money out of people. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Drawn Down Abyss, which seems to be like a Terraria style game that pauses and then you have to select a card for an ability, which seems crazy, but it doesn't seem like you always need to pause to use a ability.
Jewels of the sound.
Just seems like you have abilities in general. Well, I'm not seeing anything here visually appealing. It looks like it's the same background. It looks like it's the same collection of cards. It's $5.99, English only. I don't think they've got a good combination of gameplay mechanics here. A fast-paced game where you're platforming and jumping and shooting does not match in any way to a game where you have to pause and pull out a card and decide what you're going to use that card with. Okay. So we are so set right now. We only need to play like one minion that costs 8 or more. We can do that on Friday. I didn't open any of the packs. We'll save these packs for the next card opening video. But I do need to come over here on the European account.
Madness. Murlocs. Rafam has unleashed the plagues of Uldum, and only we can stop him.
You need to purchase the next
to
one.
Me. A plague of Murlocs are pouring forth from this ruined city.
Halls of origination, then.
I
know that
probably
place well.
should at some point make sure I play this and get some card packs. To do this would require to beat a 5th boss in this chapter, or reach the 5th boss, which isn't too much. And that really goes to show, if you spend your 700 gold correctly, you're going to get at least 3 card packs for it. Meanwhile, to unlock the final boss, that unlocks anomaly mode. Now that we own everything, we would have to complete all previous things, and then they hid your golden pack, which gives you golden cards, and this card back here where you wouldn't even look for it. So at some point I do need to do the solo expansion, and maybe even look at the solo expansions from previous solo adventures, because I wouldn't be surprised if there's some card packs I could win otherwise on those on the European and Asian accounts also. There definitely are card backs that could be done if I did the heroic mode for all the accounts, but I don't care about that. But packs, things that will actually give you cards, I do care about. And so that leaves for today 2 games of any class, or we re-roll that, Warlock class cards. okay. I don't think that's too bad because we can play a little Zoo Warlock here, play Warlock class cards, and get some variety. Meanwhile, we have a Gamatsu article. The Bradwell Conspiracy launches October 8th for PS4, PC, October 10th for Switch, and October 11th for Xbox One. I've heard of this Bradwell Conspiracy. Is this the one that is also supposed to be tied into a movie?
Your soul shall be mine.
Or is this a different game? Because there was a couple of them. Got a trailer here. I'll watch the trailer, but I won't show it. So I'm seeing a Stonehenge-like world with a building around it, and a lot of glitching, as if the world you're in is a virtual reality world, but it's also a very damaged reality world. Seems like it is a adventure game mystery. And I guess the question will come down to how much of this works. You're picking up and using things using a gun, which makes me suspect this is a VR game first before anything else. And it has kind of a symbol to make it mysterious. So I'll be interesting to see how people receive the Bradwell Conspiracy. Although, if we want to talk about reception here for a second, I said, and I guess I was mostly at this point only referring to Giant Bomb because they're about the only game podcast I even listen to anymore that talks about games. Like I said that the Blood Rain game, Code Vein game, yeah, Code Vein, not Blood Rain. Although frankly it could be a decent Blood Rain game. I said that one was not going to get reviewed well because it was anime-esque and because it has some lewd boobs in it and things like that. And yeah, I feel like I was pretty right about that. That there's the person that's actually playing Code Vein kind of started, and maybe this is just my warped perspective, kind of started saying he liked it on the Bombcast, and I'd encourage people to listen and see what they take from it. And then as soon as the main guy in charge made it blatantly apparent that no, that's not that's not the narrative we're spinning on this game, he changed his tune rather fast, and so he boiled down to saying he would like the game. It's right up his alley, but he doesn't. And then by the time the Quick Look came out, which I started watching just before I started streaming, he was really down on it. So maybe his experience changed, and maybe he's giving legitimate, realistic experiences. Maybe, and this is definitely a possibility, maybe Code Vein really is just garbage. That is totally within the realm of possibility that they tried to make something that was a Dark Souls-esque game, and it just did not succeed. Let's see. Go ahead and kill that.
Why do you call?
There we go. So yeah, I'm willing to entertain the possibility that it's bad. Otherwise, like, I'm not seeing a review from Tech Raptor for Code Vein. Gamatsu never does reviews. Tech Raptor is pretty much the only people that would do reviews. So clearly, I need to try and find some more mainstream video game journalists to look at the reviews. Or, you know what I could do is I could just go to Metacritic and type in Code Vein. That would work better than anything else. Yeah, we need to play more Warlock cards by far. So here we have an article here from TechRaptor. Concerned Ape is going to self-publish Stardew Valley on the Switch. Okay, seems like that's a good move for them. I wouldn't suspect that Stardew Valley would lose sales or get more sales for having a publisher.
Your soul shall be mine.
On the other hand, I think the thing, like the, not Metacritic, I meant OpenCritic. Let's see. That's what I wanted to go to. OpenCritic. What was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to listen to any more podcasts of mainstream video game journalists, because they all have the same thing to say, and they all barely talk about games or barely cover games these days. No, what I was gonna say though is the previous story, Stardew Valley. Like, Stardew Valley on the Switch is a great example of where a publisher could have been useful, because had they had a publisher funding the development of Stardew Valley, they would have gotten a lot more of those features out earlier. So the release on the Switch would have come out earlier, the multiplayer would have come out earlier, updates would have come out earlier. I still don't think Stardew Valley is in a finalized point where they've said that there's just no more content ever going to be added to it. And so if they're still working on it, having a publisher to give them money to hire more people is exactly where a publisher should come into play. But I don't know if that ever actually works that way. Most of the time it seems like publishers promise those things and then fail to deliver. Speaking of publishers, it seems like AtGames, which was being sued by Walgreens and Walmart and the people who own some of the rights to Miss Pac-Man, well, apparently they were directly negotiating with a group that owned some of the other rights to Miss Pac-Man, and they bought the rights clean out of that other group. So now seems like I believe it's Bandai Namco. Seems like AtGames and Bandai Namco are going to have to do business with each other, regardless of whether they hate each other or not. And it seems like the bigger story was Bandai Namco, I'm going to say it's Bandai Namco, I could be wrong, was trying to get the rights to Miss Pac-Man outright for a long time, like years and years and years, and that negotiation just never went anywhere. So it feels like they were probably lowballing this group of students, I believe it was, from MIT, that formed this corporation called the General Computing Corporation, the GCC, that how they got the rights was in some weird lawsuit in the first place, that they made Miss Pac-Man as a ROM hack to Pac-Man, and they get the appearance rights. What it boils down to the average gamer is that you're very unlikely to see any major official releases of anything with Miss Pac-Man in it. How that, I think, boils down more than anything.
I'll get right
she is just going to be a persona non grata character, I think, for the next few decades. Next we have OpenCritic. This will be an interesting, this was not one page I balanced for, so seeing how this is black here, it's going to make a black at the top on the web peak and then a black bar at the bottom. Here's OpenCritic for Code Vein. Now it should be white at top and white at bottom. The OpenCritic rating is fair, 7.4. Critics recommending it is 58%. We could see if we could. How do you get down to critics? I haven't been on OpenCritic enough. IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. Game Radar Plus gave it 3 out of 5. Metro Game Central gave it 5 out of 5. Game Informer gave it 6.5 out of 10. 61 reviews.
So many possibilities.
We've got some kind of ad, and I can't even close the ad. And there we go. 5 out of 10 from Video Gamer.
So many
79 out of 100 COG connected. I don't know most of these companies at all. In retrospect, it's like I don't have a clue who any of these are.
Job done.
Gameblog gave it 7 out of 10. We've Got This Covered gave it 3 out of 5. Just Push Start gave it 3.75 out of 5. Why are you going to a second significant digit on a 5 scale? Just go to a 10 scale. Gaming Bolt gave it 8 out of 10. Gamer Sky gave it 8 out of 10. Digitally Downloaded gave it a 4 out of 5. Got Game gave it 8 out of 10. So it seems like the bigger companies like IGN are giving it slightly lower scores. Game Informer, IGN, GameSpot gave it 6 out of 10. Destructoid didn't give it a score. Game Revolution gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And so it does feel like there's a split here. Is the split particularly different than any other reviews of any other games? Not really. IGN Italy, though, gave it an 8.5 out of 10, whereas IGN America gave it a much lower score of 7 out of 10. Where are we? How do we want to do this? I think we do this.
Almost out of time.
IGN Spain, on the other hand, gave it a 6.5 out of 10, which I guess just really goes to show up 1 or 2 points in any direction is really more of a matter of just random number picking than any concerted understanding. Rock, Paper, Shotgun didn't give it a score. That might be just built into how they do things, though. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them don't give scores. PlayStation Universe gave it a 6.5 out of 10. So I'm really doing a deep dive here just to get an idea. A lot of games companies I'm just skipping over because I don't recognize them. EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, I assume, gave it 8 out of 10. That's about the only recognizable name that I've seen so far that's given it a good score. PlayStation Lifestyle gave it 8 out of 10, but that I don't know if that's good. GamePro gave it 80 out of 100. Let's see if there's anything else. PC Games In gave it 7 out of 10. Press Start gave it 7 out of 10. CGM or CG Magazine gave it 8.5 out of 10. Niche Gamer gave it 8 out of 10. You see, that's the weirdness, is that when I say the mainstream video game media, I might really only be referring to 5 companies in total. That's really it. In the same way that you could say the mainstream news is really just, you know, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, maybe ABC News.
The light shall bring victory.
I don't know if there's really anything else. There might be an NBC News out there too. And then you could put that with a few of the print companies. So you could also say Wall Street Journal, or the New Yorker, or Washington Times. That's kind of it, though. Like, you could put all the main news sources in a bucket of less than 20 companies that are probably all owned by in a bucket of less than 5 companies.
Why do you call?
Let's see. I'm not seeing any reviews here that are explicitly terrible. Seems like some people chose to not score it, but the lowest score I think I saw was 6.5, and everything else is at 7. So if I'm going to look from that positive perspective, after doing this deep dive, which I probably will never do again, and I probably could have just switched to chart view here. Code Vein is ranked in the 56th percentile of video games scored on OpenCritic. Like, there's a large number of 8s, a large number of 7s, and then here you have a 3.5 out of 5, which is effectively a 7, and then okay, the GameSpot gave it the lowest score so far of 6, and then because some of these are rated in 5 stars, 3 stars makes it a 5, I guess. So yeah, from that perspective, it seems to me Code Vein's a fine game. If I got around to playing it, I would be perfectly happy to play it, I think. But it does, for me in particular, open up the door of being maybe a little too Dark Souls-ish. And that would be my main concern, is if I started to see reviews from people saying it's just too difficult. And that very well might be the case, that it is just too difficult a game for me, as someone who didn't make it all the way through Dark Souls 1 or 2, whatever Dark Souls I played. Next, moving on, we need to move a lot faster. We have a game here called The Last of the Trolls, which somehow has like a visual glitch in its video for no reason, and this clearly looks like MS Paint level garbage game. Seems to be a platformer. 59 cents discounted English. Not making it to a full list, obviously. This. What would be the most expensive one to upgrade? Would be this. I really didn't curate any of the games, so we may run through just a ton of terrible games here. Next we have a game on Steam called Safari Grounds. It looks like a low effort asset flip hunting game, I guess is what it's trying to be. Hunting games are always in this weird position. This is $4.99 English only, and I'm just immediately going to close this tab because obviously it's not worth playing. Hunting games in general, though, are in this problem where if you were going to put the money into it to make it a legitimate game, a good game, you're then going to run into the problem of it being brigaded against for all the animal rights activists against it and people who just don't like hunting in general. So I don't know what you do to fix that, whether you can fix that. Like, I think what you do is you have to go basically the Pokemon route, which effectively Pokemon is a hunting game. That's all you really are doing. It's just that instead of shooting and killing the animals, you're capturing them in Pokeballs. And if anything, Pokemon's more cruel because then after you capture them in Pokemon balls, you force them to fight each other, which is not something most hunters do. They don't go out and capture deers and make them fight each other. So the odds of me ever seeing a really good hunting game are very low. The other thing is hunting in the real world is mostly about sitting around doing nothing and never even seeing an animal, let alone shooting them. Maybe once in a blue moon you'll find something to shoot, but yeah, the actual success level in hunting is incredibly low. Do I want to get rid of something? Yes, I do. I want to discard a card. No, I don't think I do. Next we have a game on Steam called Warsaw. This looks like it is a kind of Darkest Dungeon game set in a World War I, World War II setting. It shockingly looks mixed on the reviews, but I like the graphics, so I'm gonna give it some generosity and put it on the follow list and see if maybe it can fix its problems. I'd like to know what the problems are. $23.99 is probably way too expensive. 34 achievements and a bunch of languages. Maybe people don't like it. Let's see, the most helpful reviews, negative. Let's see. Can't read that, it's too small. The game is atrociously harder than the beginning of Darkest Dungeon. It would be more enjoyable if you could change difficulty and autosave, but will probably never happen. Just like Darkest Dungeon, the game is clearly made to be unfair since most of the patrol are up to 5 soldiers versus your 4. Okay. Way too difficult. Okay. So the problem with Warsaw is this way too difficult. If they address that and fix that, that's great. If not, then when I do a follow list cleanup, this will get removed. I do believe I own Darkest Dungeon and probably should play it at some point.
Put this apple on your head.
Let's see. Our use 8. And then kill that. And then kill that.
No, no, no!
Kill that. Hit that. Geez, don't even have to pay attention half the time here. So I still have some Warlock cards to play, and we're working up our ranked. I clearly need to be playing this Zoo Warlock deck on all of my accounts. I assume the next expansion is not coming before the end of the year. So I probably don't need to rebuild my decks and try to do something different there. So I should probably just play Zoo Warlock. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Ubisoft announces free Rabbids coding game, which the last thing I would want is a coding game with the Raving Rabbids, and I still don't feel like the Raving Rabbids are particularly 100% kid friendly, particularly young kids, and they're super zany, high energy. I don't think it's going to be useful. This is, I believe, that Scratch programming language. They all look like this. They're terrible. I've seen versions of this, by the way, where it's not even linear programming, where you can have different loops and groups going on at the same time, and there's like no indication or explanation that that's getting handled in the back end, like so much of the programming is getting handled in the back end. If you see a programming game like this or programming language like this, this is not going to teach kids to really be good programmers. I don't think teaching the basic concepts in a solid, consistent, understandable way. I think it is just dumbing down programming to make people think they can be programmers and then just become incredibly frustrated when they have to take a C++ class or a C# class or a Java class or even an HTML programming class. Even compared to HTML with its opening and closing tags that you have to do in HTML, this is way simplified, and it's just not good. Like, we need better ways to teach programming if kids are going to get into programming. On the other hand, I was just watching a This Old House episode talking about how, like, in the United States right now, there's like 200,000 trade work, construction work jobs that need to be filled right now. And if people just had bothered to ever take a job in construction, become an apprentice, and learn a few basic things, that they potentially set themselves up for a lot more success than what you would have as a programmer. They were talking about how 5 to 10 years, if you put in the work, if you try really hard, you'll own your own business. You'll have a couple of cars, a couple of trucks. You'll be doing rather well if you succeed in that. And even if you don't succeed, you'll know how to do at least some basic construction repair stuff. There is a level of maturity required, so you can't put like a 10-year-old on a construction yard, but they were talking about 16, 17, 18-year-olds, if depending on the person, are potentially good apprentices. and any single construction trade. If you even know how to do one thing good, you're so ahead of the curve for just home maintenance and understanding. So if you know how to properly tile things, if you know how to properly frame things, if you know how to do just even paint things, you're gonna succeed better.
Job's done.
Whereas if you're a coder, I don't know what to say about coders, frankly. Like, you can be a great coder and still end up in a terrible job. You can be a terrible coder and still end up in a great job. It has more to do with getting degree accreditations a lot of times than who you know than it does any proof of your ability. And in one situation you might be great at coding, and in another situation you might be terrible. I'm probably pretty terrible at coding JavaScript right now, since I haven't done it in a very long time. But I would probably be pretty good at programming some other languages. Well, I haven't done anything in a real long time, so I wouldn't be great at anything.
That's incredible.
And it certainly does suck in the long run to have learned a lot of programming in school and then not really had any use for it on a day-to-day basis to stay in control of that. Although, frankly, what you learn in school also is often so bad and so outdated that you have to continuously commit yourself to education anyways. Self-education.
Put this apple on your head.
Learning new things.
Do I have to?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna lose here. But whatever. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Report Mario and Luigi developer Alpha Dream has filed for bankruptcy. Now, I don't know if this is a Japanese bankruptcy, which means they'd actually be liquidated, or if this is just they had too much debt, so they're doing some financial shenanigans to get outside of well, 3.7 million in debt. It really doesn't seem like it's that much. The company's final project was a remake of Mario and Luigi's Bowser Inside Story for the 3DS, and I guess they probably did not get a renewed project from Nintendo, and without a project to move forward on, they probably couldn't afford to get a loan to keep themselves in business.
Why do you call?
That would be my guess. It's kind of a shame because this is an indication. Not really, I really don't care about Alpha Dream too much, but it's an indication that we won't be getting any more Paper Mario or Mario RPG style games, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, Mario Odyssey came out a year ago, about, I would say. It would be a nice little filler if 2 years from now or 1 year from now on the Switch there was a Mario RPG style game. But we did also hear from Nintendo that they were going to focus on making all future Zelda games look like Breath of the Wild, which probably means we won't see any Zelda Game Boy style games, which if you take that concept and transfer it to Mario Brothers, they probably means that they're going to make all future Mario games either look like new Super Mario Brothers or Mario Odyssey, and that there just really isn't a room for the Switch to have a old flat Mario RPG style game. Also, I guess with Pokemon, there's a little bit less of a reason to have a Mario RPG style of game, but
For Doomhammer.
it's still been alright.
Shall be mine.
It seems like maybe Nintendo is getting a little less adventurous with their licenses when they should get more adventurous. And frankly, if they came out with a Splatoon style RPG game, that would be great. Or if they did any other kind of style of game with the Splatoon characters, that would be great. They don't need to just have those characters after being developed forgotten. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Stranded Sails is a seafaring survival game that you can actually win. And no, you're not a pirate. So is this an actual review or just an advertisement for a game? Doesn't seem like there's an actual review here. I hope I didn't close the close or block the part that gives it an actual review score. The other thing, Stranded Sails comes out in the fourth quarter of 2019, so it's not out yet. The other thing there is with TechRaptor's new website, they might be in a position where they are going to stop giving the score numbers, but I think we saw one already. Let's see. This is kind of all I can do. TechRaptor has the same article. Rocket League gets new blueprint system in December. Yeah, we'll probably see a little bit more about that. In a weird way, it might even be an excuse for some people to go back and play it for half a second. I see the beginning of the end now, so if we just burn through a lot of news, it should be capable. TechRaptor has an article here. A new Humble Bundle is for one special day. So we'll talk about that when we get to the let's see. Talk about it when we get to the Humble Bundle section. It includes the Swords of Ditto, which I don't think people liked that originally, but they maybe fixed that game. Maybe they fixed that game. That's a big maybe.
Do I have to? Stop copying me! Stop copying me!
TechRaptor has an article. Dawn of Man Fauna update released. Which I don't know what Dawn of Man is. Let's go to the Steam page and see what it looks like. Ooh, that's a new load screen. That was not the link I meant to click on. I meant to click on this. Dawn of Man is a real-time strategy survival game. I remember this one. And you can see it's not on the fall list, and I think I'm gonna just leave this on the not on the fall list. It's just not my style of game. City builders, real-time strategy games where you're running a civilization from the beginning of society all the way up to some next generations. If I was gonna play a game like that, there's some other games that have predated Dawn of Man that I think would have more relevancy. TechRaptor has an article here. Persona 5 Royale release date reportedly revealed. So, when is it coming out? November 2019, apparently. So, okay. I don't think I'm gonna get around to ever playing the Persona series. So, I just don't think it'll ever be on PC. In the same way that I'd really love to play like the old God of War games, and it's probably never coming to PC either. By the time I could play them through emulation, it would not be worth it or relevant. That is an interesting thought as we're seeing a potential issue of PlayStation having trouble. It would be interesting if PlayStation went out of business completely, Sony PlayStation did, and then the feeling that you would need to really support them as a company disappeared. Then you could just, it wouldn't be any difference legally, I'm sure, but it would sure feel different to gamers if PlayStation just didn't exist, the games weren't available for purchase anymore, and people were just saying, well, just run it through an emulator, download the ROMs and run it through an emulator. That, like, legally, again, that's not the way the law looks at it, but it would be an interesting twist on a lot of old games, PlayStation 1 and 2 games. In particular, PlayStation 3 games I think would be a little bit harder to emulate, and I don't know if there would really be a great way to emulate anything PlayStation 4. Moving on, TechCraft has an article, co-op RPG adventure in Alien, or I guess that's how that's pronounced. This looks a little low polygonal. It's coming to PC in February. Let's see this trailer. This might be a game, but I wouldn't also be surprised if this is just an attempt at making a Zelda clone. It does not look good enough. It does not look polished enough. If you were going to make a Zelda clone, you need to bring it up to a level of quality above that. We shall see if that is received well, but I seriously doubt it would be. Okay. Kill this. Play this. Deal 2 damage. Draw a card. There we go. Next we have an article from TechRaptor. Chinese Parent update celebrates first anniversary. I think Chinese Parents was like a visual novel game, wasn't it? Let's see what this looks like on Steam. Because this felt like a troll game and a joke game, so it's weird that you would celebrate the 1-year anniversary. Yeah, it feels kind of like a visual novel slash maybe with some mini games. They're claiming it's an RPG. It's $6.39, English and Chinese. Yeah. I don't really even get an idea here if this is somehow some twisted way of celebrating the Tiger Mom mentality and the Tiger Dad mentality of some Chinese parents. Like, I don't even know if it's celebrating that or making fun of it and trolling that or what. But yeah, it's really not a game. And I suppose it would be a deeper dive to see how far is too far, to think about how far is too far in parenting before you become just over demanding and frankly emotionally abusive.
Hello, hello.
I will fight with honor.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want that on the follow list. Next, we have a game article from Raptor. Arise, a simple story, gets a release date. So another game is getting a release date. There's no link here. The musician who worked on it worked on Hellblade's Soonest Sacrifice. It's coming out December 3rd.
Let me
It's a little late, December 3rd, to be releasing a game, quite honestly. It's a little too late. Tech Raptor has an article here, Super Mario Maker 2 multiplayer enhanced with new features. If you're still playing Super Mario Maker 2, now has co-op and versus mode, which I guess that's local co-op and versus and not online co-op and versus, but maybe it's both.
Hello?
Let's go ahead and squelch an Oiotron. Next we have Tech Raptor here. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners hands-on preview. Yet another Walking Dead product. I already squelched this guy.
Hello?
He's already squelched and he's still in there. Still making noise. Looks like this might be a VR experience. But it also kind of looks like a real game. So that's weird. The Walking Dead has certainly lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. I guess Skybound kind of has to do something with its license. So yeah, this looks like a game of real experience.
I wonder.
All charged up. All charged up.
VR Walking Dead. I don't know how well the game is actually going to
I
play.
hope you like my invention.
There is something, I guess, to be said about zombie games where the zombies could get really close to your face and it'd be more scary that way, but I think the danger there is you will just throw your hands out wildly and hit somebody, or in some other way hurt yourself or hurt other people. Yeah, I guess Starbound, because it's the company that owns The Walking Dead, has to do something. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a movie deal, and I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, since there was a Downton Abbey movie, it would totally make sense that they would make something else like that.
Access denied.
I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make some more TV deals. I wouldn't be surprised if they just have a constant run of games. They probably will try to merge the Telltale style games into just regular style games, because let's be honest, there was really no reason to not have some standard gameplay mechanics of actually fighting and shooting the zombies happen in the Telltale games. It was just the fact that that was beyond the ability of the engine. So if we can have a Walking Dead game that has good gameplay and good story, that would be great. We've kind of not had any of that at all. We had a decent story in the first season of the Walking Dead Telltale game, and that was it. And then we've had a deluge of mediocre at best spin-offs and projects. Let's see. Next, Gamatsu has an article here. Survival game Green Hell is coming to the PS4 and Xbox One in 2020. This looks like it's maybe just a standard survival experience, although visually it looks nice. That may not really mean anything. Excuse me, I'm wearing out my voice again. This is why, in part, I did not do any recording on Lego games for the past 3 days, as I've just been wearing out my voice like crazy doing Hearthstone streams. I need to take a week of just not talking, which I never have enough time to do that.
Do you like to play with fire?
Reporting for duty.
Okay. This guy's immune this turn, so do this. And do that. Do that. And then in the turn. Tech Raptor has the same article. Atsushi Morita departs the Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asia. Although I believe the previous article had the names backwards, so I'm not sure which one is the right way. I would assume that his since it looks like they're directly quoting the article, I would assume it is saying his last name first and his family name first and his surname second. I think that's the right way to say that surname. I don't even know.
Reporting for duty.
Let's go!
Go and kill that. Tech Raptor also has the same article. PlayStation exec Sean Layden steps down. Like, I'd like to know how old he is in comparison.
Hello? Hello?
The light bends
It's time to test your metal.
See, one of the worst case scenarios, I guess, here would be if the Japanese people, the managers of Japan, of the Sony Interactive Entertainment, decided to just move over and be in charge of something like Activision Blizzard or Bethesda or EA. It's like, we moved from one company to another company, and this is guaranteed bad news for everybody involved. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Era of Miracles. It looks like a RPG Maker game with Dark Screenshot Syndrome. Haven't even had to say Dark Screenshot Syndrome today until this point. Discounted to $2.69, English and Russian. That's way too expensive. Tech Raptor has the same article here. PS4 crossplay reportedly leads beta for developers. I guess the crossplay, where it would have said beta, was a developers only site, I guess is the general idea there. And there's victory. Tech Raptor has an article here. Flotsam hauls into early access. Hauls in a early access roadmap. Flotsam being another one of those Raft clones that might have some interesting animation to it, but it certainly is doing a very generic concept that's been done to death by now. Alright, we're in a weird position now. We've done all the daily quests, but let's get the news done and just play a little ranked, because I don't want to jump out and and have to run around and go back to the main America's account and play some rank there. While we're here, we'll also purchase the final week.
Plague of Murlocs. Everyone who ventures.
And see, it takes about an hour to do any of these runs, so the odds of me ever having an extra hour is incredibly low. Like, I could do this off screen later tonight if I really just wanted to play more Hearthstone. I definitely do not. But that would be hours and hours. I'd rather work on some project completely not related to this, or be smart and actually schedule some videos, which is what I should be doing. It's what I should be doing right now, even. Next we have a game on Steam called The Long Return, which looks like it's you play as a fox, and it's a puzzle game. It looks like it has a significant amount of puzzling. It is a little low polygonal, but not so bad that I find it completely objectionable.
For Doomhammer, I will fight with honor.
Yeah, this deserves to be on the fall list. It's $8.99 discounted. Has a bunch of languages, claims full audio, and I suspect that means it doesn't have any audio in the game at all. And once we get all the news done, we'll be done for today. Next we have a game on Steam called Cemetery Warrior 4, and this looks like somebody bothered to actually animate this. Now, the animation is a little old looking. It does look like something that could have been in '97.
I must move quickly.
But what is this really? Is it a Doom clone, Doom 3D clone shooting demons? It doesn't look terrible. I don't recognize this game though. Like, I feel like if there was a clone of a Doom game where you're shooting demons, and that there had been 3 before that, I would have heard about it. Seems like the last game happened 5 years ago. This is also a free-to-play game. Let's look at this developer. Alright. Looking at the developer, Cemetery Warrior came out in 2018, so he's not 5 years ago. He has 3 particularly bad games, 1 mixed games, and 3 positively reviewed games, and then a large collection of games that have no reviews.
I must move quickly.
So I'm assuming that this is a low effort kind of troll developer that I have to assume is a lot better than most at buying pre-made assets and making things look somewhat good. I mean, maybe he's not even a low effort troll developer. Maybe he's just a slightly below quality indie developer that has not gotten enough sales or enough coverage. And maybe this is a hidden in the rough gem. But I don't understand why this game would be free to play. It doesn't seem like it has any in-app purchases. So go check out Cemetery Warrior 4 if you're interested, I guess. I'm a little iffy on it myself, but we'll see.
To battle!
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here for the PC, PS4, and Switch. Cotton reboot details original, arranged, and score attack modes. Cotton being a side-scrolling shooter game of some sort that I don't recognize. It's due out in 2020 in Japan, and I suspect this game won't come out worldwide. Let's see. Gamatsu for the PS4, Yakuza Like a Dragon introduces Fortune Teller, Riot Police, and Idle Jobs. I'd say Riot Police are an odd option right now in the Asian areas in general, but Hong Kong certainly is not Japan. Let's see.
Let
Right,
me
police a
think.
job with high defense power thanks to the big shield and full body protector. In a fantasy RPG, they would be a knight class. Okay. Let's see. This.
Converting stored energy.
Attack that. So I wanted to bring up this. Gematsu has the Famitsu review scores for issue 1609, and they have Lilith of Borderlands from Borderlands 3, which the way they have the soft cell shading comic book style that they've adopted is a little bit interesting now that they've gotten more details, and you can see there's little moles and bits of dirt or whatever in her face. That's not something that I think could have been done as well as it used to been done in Borderlands 1 or Borderlands 2, where they had the giant scars and really prominent skin markings to indicate that they'd been shot quite a lot. So, in comparison, Borderlands 3 for the PS4 and Xbox One was given Famitsu's score of a 9, a 9, an 8, and a 9, giving it a 35 out of 40, giving it a really high score. Code Vein was given an 8, a 9, an 8, and a 7, a 32 out of 40, which is actually considerably lower than a 35. It's almost one full step when you recognize that there are 4 reviewers giving the scores.
Access denied.
Formula 1 2019 for the PS4 was given an 8, an 8, and 8 for a 32 of 40. And then Gensao Kisha Enchante for the Switch was given a 7, an 8, an 8, and 8 for 31. And then Trine for the Nightmare Prince apparently was not given a score at all, according to Famitsu or Gematsu. So the Japanese audience, at least Famitsu in particular, are saying Borderlands is great. they love it. Which, okay. I suspect heavily, if I was to guess, is very little of the drama that happened around the release of Borderlands 3 made it to the Japanese audience. So they probably think this is a great game out for the PS4, considering how nobody has an Xbox One and very few people are going to be playing it on PC, and so they probably don't care about the Epic Store exclusivity either. So I would not be surprised if there's particularly high sales of Borderlands 3 based on those review scores for the PS4 in Japan. And you can see Code Vein in its native country of Japan seems to be pretty well received too. But not as good as Borderlands 3.
Protocol 7.
Let's go!
We are playing ranked, so we do want to just keep the win streak going. A game called As Divine Kimura is now available for Xbox One. Let's see, seems to be it's a RPG series, as far as I can tell. These tweets out by Major Nelson about games on the Xbox One still not super useful. We've got a new game on Steam called Drone Tracks, which we've seen several drone games on Steam, and they, for one reason or another, a lot of them seem to be lacking. A lot of them seem to want to include VR. According to Giant Bomb, VR funding now is dried up, and that's good. This is $4.19.
I will fight with
It's
honor.
single player with multiplayer, English only. I'm willing to put this on the fall list. This looks like this might actually be a decent drone flying game. Which I think I'd be willing to play one decent drone flying game, but honestly it probably should just be a mini game in something else, and we should see quite a few drone flying mini games and a lot of military fighting games. Things like Call of Duty and such, or even Borderlands would be a example of a game that's a little surprising there isn't a drone flying mini game of some sort. Guess I have to do this. And I guess I have to do this. I played that wrong. I should have done that. Let's see. Komatsu has an article for the PS4. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim details more sub-characters, Sentinels, and Kaiju. So, I believe 13 Sentinels is a half mech game, half visual novel game. Maybe it's all a visual novel game. You got a very different art style here, in particular, too. It's very soft pastel, almost French in its French high fashion in its design, and I would say they are attempting to get away from the moe art style quite a bit, with taller looking characters, still kind of short characters compared to Westerners, but I think it's also always important to remember Japanese people, there aren't a lot of 6'2" Japanese people walking around, so that they are typically shorter even when they are older.
I must move quickly.
Of course, you also have the split here of characters that are depicted as being in their 50s or 60s and looking completely different. This is an interesting art style for a mech-based visual novel game. Oops, let's actually play. Just scrolling through a lot of screenshots here, getting hyped about a game that probably won't ever get around to playing. A lot of pictures here. This is very odd for Komatsu to have so many pictures. Right.
Photonic burst.
And then they have these character sheet menus also. Due out on the PS4 November 28th in Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if this one actually comes to the West. Meanwhile, I'm about to get killed by a ton of Murlocs. Anything we can do here? Kill that. We can kill that. We can do that. Komatsu has an article here. Model debut #Nicola full-length trailer. So we've got a anime model type character for the Switch. This looks like it might be a targeted towards girls type of game that's coming out for the Switch. I bet it doesn't come out to the West. Right. Magnetic Divine Shield.
Reporting for duty.
We need things gone. And that means really gone. If I have even a chance of succeeding here, which I really don't. Next we have a game on Steam here, powered by Unreal, called Night Guardian, which seems like it's one of those horror games where you're playing as a teddy bear fighting off nightmares. This is probably a low effort asset flip game. It certainly suffers from dark screenshot syndrome and feels like it's kind of a tower defense horde mode game. $2.99, English only, third party ULAT. Night Garden, not looking interesting. I lost there, but was making enough progress that one loss doesn't matter. That I don't really need to change it up, although I guess I could play Zoo Warlock. Why not? Let's see. Gamatsu also has this article, so this is a big story. Like, my three main news sources all talked about it. Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios Chair Sean Layden departs PlayStation.
You asked for it.
Your soul shall be mine.
None of them have any real interesting takes on it, certainly, but it is what it is, I suppose. Next, we have a game on Steam called Trials of Harmony, experimental visual novel.
Hello.
This doesn't looks very blurry, the video that we're being shown right now. It feels like it's a Jigsaw style game of death around the visual novel with some kind of mini games in it also. It seems like a lot of this is just going to be looking at a screen, or the entire game is looking at the screen.
Almost out of time.
I don't feel like there's really a game here, or this is like a mobile port. $2.54 discounted, English only, rated M for mature, it claims. I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see, but I heavily suspect the truth of the matter is that it's barely a game at all.
Hello.
Gamma Sutra also has the same article. Sean Layden is departing Sony Interactive Entertainment. Let's go ahead and squelch this character. We don't need to mention it anymore.
I'm gonna win big.
Then we've got another game tagged sexual content. And there are enough anime girls in this that are in skimpy bikinis with very large bosoms that I don't feel like there's a need to show off this game. So suffice it to say, there is a game on Steam called Hentai Pix. It is 59 cents discounted. It is a slide puzzle game with anime girls in it. It says it supports a bunch of languages, and once again, not worth buying. If you want to find these images online, I imagine it wouldn't take you too hard. Maybe not these specific images, but you could find something very similar to these images for free if that's what you're looking for. Although, assuming you even have a decent bandwidth and internet connection, the days of looking at or downloading stationary images of lewd material have long since gone, I would argue. That's not something that makes any sense nowadays when you can get full video, or you could get a full visual novel that has lots of images and a lot of text and some sound effects maybe. Just draw cards. It's strange that I still don't really have any cards to play. Next, we have a game on Steam called Mega Meter Madness. This is a clone of a game I've seen advertised on YouTube, and the game advertised on YouTube is not interesting per se. It seems like you basically have to tap at the right time to break certain levels and then stop tapping, or the ball will try to go through the wrong color and fail, I assume. This is 74 cents. It's included in a bundle of 128 items, which that should be a red flag right there when 92% off bundles occur for $51.77. Get this developer and publisher off of Steam. Like, They have abused the privilege. Like, did they really pay $100 times 128 to get all these games on Steam? Or did they find some other shenanigan way of getting on Steam?
Stop copying me!
Almost out of time.
But yeah, that's shocking. That is the largest number of games I've ever seen in a bundle. And completely unrealistic that a average developer would be able to have a bundle that big. You could easily limit them down to 5. Like, seriously, just 5 games per bundle would be enough. This is Frozen. Whenever you play a card,
So many possibilities.
so this and this. And then the turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Rainer Knizia Yellow and Yangtze. Sounds like 3 Chinese names. It looks like this is kind of a low effort, top-down strategy Chinese game of some sort. Early access, $11.99, English only. Looking at these screenshots though, I don't see a game that's particularly that interesting, but it does have a slightly interesting polish to it, so I'll give it a follow, see if it can get out of early access, see if it can get reviews. I'll be generous and give it a chance, which is more than what I'm getting over here. Playing ranked. This will be the last game we'll play. This next game is tag sexual content again, so let's see if we
Tremble before the might.
agree with that.
Your soul shall be mine.
Next game we have here is Hentai World War II, just merging 2 key phrases together. It's tagged as positive because people love troll games. It's this one anime girl skin while running around fighting standard asset flipped, probably stolen assets from other games. Early access, 59 cents, discounted, 16 achievements. Apparently there's some nudity or content in it. It's tagged sexual content for sure. People need something better to do with their time by far, instead of like, these are things that are skin replacement mods that you could put on a much better game.
I know
Like,
what you
I would stand up and applaud if you made a nudity mod for Borderlands 3 and all the people were running around naked. That's fine. Don't sell it, don't put it on Steam, just put it out there on a website, on a GitHub or something, and just be like, okay, we did this. I did it because I thought it was funny. But when you're actually just trying to make money off of it, and you're really just trolling the Steam storefront, just because the Steam storefront lets you, I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe this is the way you deal with trolls on the internet nowadays, is you just let them exhaust themselves and charge them $100 each time. Maybe you just profit off of it, and that's the right way to deal with trolls these days. I'm a little bit not from that perspective. I would have thought you would have banned more people. I would have thought that Valve would have said, no, we want to curate our storefront at least a little bit.
So many possibilities.
But it kind of doesn't feel like that's the case.
Put this apple on your head.
I might be the one that's wrong here. Moving on, we have a game called Microcar Crash Online Lego. which clearly this is trying to be Lego. And it looks like a Lego game too, so this is copyright infringement of Lego's trademark, or trademark infringement of the brand Lego at the very least. A Hot Wheels style game like this, which is really what this would be, not a Lego game, would be nice if somebody did it right and didn't blatantly infringe on trademarks in the process. $2.99 discounted, English only. This, of course, not making it to the fall list, because even if I was able to get around to purchasing it, it would almost certainly be removed from the storefront before sooner or later.
I'll get right on it.
I should have attacked first. Yeah, there's only one thing we can do here. Let's see what happens. Gamasutra has an article here, an inviting mini world, how Nintendo made Animal Crossing. This feels like a blog. It is. It's from 2013, so why they're retweeting it, I have no idea. I hate that Gamasutra does that on Twitter. That's awful. This is interesting. TechRaptor has an article here. The mountain biome wins Minecraft's update vote. Which doesn't make sense. I thought it was the hell biome that they were going to update. So there seems to be there does seem to be some kind of like miscommunication that happened here, and all of a sudden Minecraft is now updating the mountain biome, which in all fairness the mountain biome kind of has nothing in it, so it's not like that's a terrible decision. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Now You See, a hand-painted horror adventure. Looking at this does not look like this is a hand-painted game. It's if everything in here was hand-painted, it would look a lot different. So it feels like the hand painting is really just more of a reference to that game that was super popular because streamers played it, and I played it and then found was rather annoying.
I wonder.
Because nothing ever happened in it. I forget the name of that one. Even. This might be a bit of an adventure game, so I'll give it a follow, but I suspect it's not that good. $14.99, add the cart. Why did I say add the cart? No, $14.99, no discount. English with full audio. I suspect it does have full audio. I'm in a kind of a weird position anyways, because I don't know if there's... Oh man, I meant to attack. I don't know if I even need any more horror games, frankly. I may have enough for next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. So some small indie horror game probably doesn't add a lot of value there. There you go. Attack. Let's see if this is explosive trap. It is. This. And this. And this. And then the jump. TechRaptor has an article here. Games Workshop and Marvel team to make Warhammer comics, which I guess means that Warhammer, the series, is going to have some comic books from Marvel, which is owned by Disney, which means probably not a lot's going to come from it. That's probably true as far as Marvel comics in general, is that I would guess not a lot is going to come from any effort that they do. They haven't been particularly successful in the past few decades, so why would they start now?
You command.
Let's see. Tech Raptor has an article here. Dragon Quest of the Stars comes west on mobile or in early 2020. This is a cell phone game around the Dragon Quest series. And I don't know if very many people are going to want to play that. It almost certainly is a gacha game full of microtransactions. Let's see, you can see right here in the screenshot alone there's 6,000 slimes and 50,000 gold. So 50,000 gold is going to be the free credit, and then you press this button to buy more of the pay for credit. And it looks like it's going to be kind of an RPG where you rank up, and then you rank up individual things. And then there'll be daily quests and lucky chests and loot boxes, and yeah, it's going to be full of microtransactions like most mobile games are.
Why do you call?
Why me? Why me?
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Legend of Vices, or The Legend of Vices. I guess that's Vices with 2 C's. Looks like it's an RPG Maker game. Frankly, I just am never gonna give a game that looks like this the time of day. Like, even if it was really, really great, there's just so much flooding of the marketplace of Super NES, NES looking JRPGs that there's no way to dig out of that weeds. I would have to have fans of my channel directly pointing me towards a game before I'd give it the time of day. This is $13.99, English and Chinese, so its odds are it's not that good in the first place. And here we go.
Why me?
Let's do this.
See, we almost got this right on the nose, so we only have about 3 things to talk about. So next we have a game on Steam called Kaede the Eliminator, which in a lot of ways looks a lot like the Hentai World War II game, but they've just stepped it back a little bit. I don't think that there really is a game here. It is rated positively. You can put her in a maid outfit. Just tag mature. It's $19.99. It's part of a Dojin bundle. And it's English and Chinese and Japanese. So do we give this a chance and put it on the follow list? Risking to put it... I think just to save time's sake, I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see how many reviews really happen in 6 months. Really, what does that boil down to? Does it possibly somehow make it worth $19.99, which I'm almost certainly it's not. Even if I had like the total wrong idea and this was actually an indie Japanese game that actually tried. Well, Gamatsu had a link to an article, God Eater 3 version 2.0 update, but now it's just a 404 error. We don't get that very often. Then this next game is called tagged sexual content and nudity also, so everything seems to be unlocked. And there's another screenshot with just blaring bright white lights censoring everything. Let's see, a casual intellectual game, it says. I don't believe that. So yeah, Seed Girl 2. I can't even really tell what kind of game it is. I'm not really seeing any gameplay at all. Seems like it's a match game or a hide and seek game. It seems like you're just kind of like, maybe it's a puzzle game, I guess. I guess it's a puzzle game where you drag around a bunny to eat all the facades. And the trailer here is downright pornographic, I would say. So again, maybe that's the way to sell a game like this on Steam. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it seems like they already got in trouble and were told to censor some of the screenshots. This game, Sequel 2, is 69 cents. It's English with Japanese full audio and Chinese subtitles. So that almost gets to the point where it might have been a worthwhile game to put on the fall list, but still looked a little too rough and looked too much like a low effort game. And then our final game on Steam we have is Happy STG, which is a bullet hell shoot 'em up game. It looks like it's a mobile game. It's $3.59 discounted, English and Japanese. Not my style of game, and definitely I wouldn't want to play something that looks like it's a mobile game. Although, in all fairness, shoot 'em up games sometimes have this ratio when they are not mobile games. But when they do something like that, they usually have something on the side to make up for that, not just pure blackness. And then that brings me to the Humble Bundle, and I'm not going to go through my Twitter feed and try and find any more news. We'll just save that for Friday. So there's a Painter Create with Confidence bundle, Make Your Card Game Mixed bundle. Let's see what that is. If any of that is actually a video game. Yeah, it seems like it's a bunch of assets to program your own card game. Ooh, that's the last thing anybody needs, is just some Hearthstone clone assets. And yeah, I think that's newsworthy to point out here. We've got, so here looks like a very Hearthstone-esque card template. Some of these don't look particularly from Hearthstone, but definitely from other games, as far as just art styles. Then you get back to this and it's like, yeah, that's Hearthstone again. That's clearly inspired by Hearthstone. Doesn't have the Hearthstone logo on it, but they really just took card backs that already existed and made them their own. Almost, I almost wonder if maybe Blizzard took these card templates and made them into Hearthstone in the first place. Maybe it's the other way around. Again, this all looks a lot like Hearthstone as far as encouraging somebody to make their own card game, which is a dumb thing to encourage people to do. Let's just be honest here. You're not going to make a card game as an indie developer that succeeds. You need to have a lot of money to support artists and writers and testing and gameplay. This Unity 2019 bundle seems like it is just more programming stuff for trying to encourage people that they could actually make something in Unity that looks great. And honestly, I don't think you can. Not by just buying a bundle. But the actual game bundle here is the One Special Day 2019. So if you, for $1 you get Broken Age, which I already own, and Perfect Date, which I'd be willing to play a cat dating visual novel simulator. And then you get the mixed reviewed Swords of Ditto, Mormo's Curse, and Stronghold Crusaders 2. And then the very positive Bomber Crew if you pay over the average of $5.28. I already own Bomber's Crew. I don't think I own Swords of Ditto. If you pay $10 or more, you get Dirt 4, which is mixed, and Tannenberg, which is a game I've not heard of. So, nothing really there, which is good because I certainly don't have a budget to be buying any more games. Probably for the rest of the year. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.